Hey VC, it's Mazzy with Whack-A-Mole number 15. Little Handel water music. Música de agua en español. Es muy difícil hablar español, pero hablan muy poquito. Before I pull Whack-A-Mole, you know it. Do I have to tell you again? I pull 5 random records from my collection and just talk about them. It kind of gives me something as much as it gives you something, because I sometimes pull things that I had forgotten about or haven't played in a while, and most of the time I actually play these records, if not right away, that evening. Not always, but most of the time. I wanted to show you 2 books first, just because for some reason, in the political climate we're in, which I don't want to get into politics, and I'm not going to, but I just love these in my collection, my book collection. Communism, Hypnotism, and the Beatles. David Nobel, an evangelist, wrote this in 1964, I believe. Or is it 65? 1965, by the Christian Crusade. Again, I shouldn't share or mix politics, religion, and music. This is the 4th edition. God, first edition, 10,000 and 25,000, 55,000 copies in print. But he compares and cites how rock and roll music, and especially the Beatles, are brainwashing you. Hope this isn't nobody's father or grandfather here. And the other one, by the same author, I collect all his books. Marxist Minstrels, a handbook on communist subversion of music. I love this shit. Anyway, Whack-A-Mole number 15. And I'm going to be off air after this for a few days. I know I've been kind of I cram a lot. I'll do like 2 or 3 videos in a day or 2, and then I'll move on. Have a little traveling again for a little work and a little portfolio reviews for a graduation thing, Academy of Art University. Anyway, here we go. Whack-A-Mole number 15, first pick. Oh. Dan Hicks and his Hot Licks. Okay, their first record was on Epic, and they moved to Blue Thumb Records. San Francisco Bay Area band, kind of country swing, jazzy. Great band. Interesting, very unique for the time, for the early 70s. But I saw them 4 or 5 times in the Bay Area initially, and in fact, their farewell concerts were 2 nights at Winterland in San Francisco, where they opened up for the Kinks, and I went both nights, mainly because I was a Kinks fan, but I was also a Dan Hicks fan, and I used to see him at the boarding house in San Francisco. But this album is a live album, and it's beautiful, it's jazzy, it's a little retro, and he's hysterical. Dan Hicks's humor is hysterical. Dan Hicks and his Hot Licks, kind of that 40s, 50s boogie with a little western swing. Sid Page on violin. God, I don't know what to say. Stand-up bass and the Liquettes. I feel like singing Hook It by Crook. The Buzzard Was Their Friend. Where's the Money? Where's the Money? But highly recommended. Their records, you can see them pretty cheap. I think they have 5 albums out, give or take. But Dan Hicks and Hot Licks. Dan Hicks died about, I'm thinking 5 years ago now. Okay, number 2. Flaco Jimenez, Flaco. Flaco, accordion player from San Antonio, Texas. Those of you that follow me and know about my passion for Ry Cooder knows that Ry Cooder elevated his status among some listeners. Obviously, he didn't totally discover him, but he opened him up. He played on his Chicken Skin Music and the yellow one. I'll think of it in a minute. But Tex-Mex music, accordion player. Also, I think before that he played with Doug Sahm, and you might know Doug Sahm, who was from San Antonio, Texas, as the 60s band Sir Douglas Quintet with She's About a Mover and Mendocino, but he did some albums on Atlantic Records, and Flaco played on those. But he toured for years and years with Ry Cooder, and I saw him a number of times. In fact, last year, in fact, he was there also. This record is on our Hooli Records out of Berkeley, California, actually El Cerrito, California, and Down Home Records is there, and that was owned by Chris Strachowitz, Chris started our Hooli recently, last few years, I think, sold it to the Smithsonian, but Chris produced this record, beautiful record. A review copy I got from them when this came out, this is probably 1979, or came out in probably 1980. Came out in 80 on our Hooli Records. That wonderful bluesy, rootsy our Hooli label, and includes lyrics. But you know, Flaco played a lot of Mexicana music, which is very influenced by polkas and waltzes, and I just love this kind of rootsy stuff. So another great record. Okay, Mazzy Whack-A-Mole number 15, pick number 3. Tres. Uno, dos, tres. Richard and Linda Thompson. Shoot Out the Lights. This was set in 1982 on Handel Records, and this was produced by, I think Joe Boyd produced it, right? Did he produce this one? Hannibal was Joe Boyd's label. This is a Canadian A&M issue, Hannibal. I'm not sure if he actually produces one. I'm kind of doing an offshoot. Joe Boyd was an American who was an expatriate, moved to England. He worked for Elektra Records and as an A&R, and he produced. He was roomies up in Harvard or Cambridge with Jeff Muldaur, who was married to this woman, Maria, who became Maria Muldaur. But Joe Boyd opened the UFO Club, but the UFO Club was a partner in that in London in the swinging 60s of late 66, 67. And the house band for years was Pink Floyd. And Joe Boyd produced their first single, and then when they got signed to EMI, obviously the in-house producer Norman Smith ended up producing them because they couldn't use freelance producers. But Handel Records, does it say who? Yeah, Joe Boyd produced it. I mean, Joe Boyd produced the Incredible String Band, and he produced, the Maria Muldaur album that became a hit with Midnight at the Oasis. He produced Nick Drake, all the Nick Drake records, discovered and produced Nick Drake. Anyway, kind of that rootsy stuff. His label Hannibal during his CD era has a lot of reissues and some great root stuff. I think he also did, is it the first maybe, or I'm thinking he did at least one 10,000 Maniacs. I could be wrong there. But great autobiography I read last year of him too. But I digress again. Richard Thompson keeps playing around. Great player. He was in Fairport Convention. Linda's solo records are great as well, but they made several albums as a husband and wife team. And Shoot Out the Lights is great on here, but one of my favorite songs is Did she jump or was she pushed? I keep asking that question. But whack-a-mole number 3. Whack-a-mole number 15. Tres. Necesito otro recording número 4. Por favor. Okay, you all know the Beach Boys, but what's special about this record, those of you who are more on the audiophile side, I know a lot of record collectors think that audiophilism or audiophiliac is a disease, and people are more into the equipment and the EQ and the sound and the oral pleasure rather than the music. That's partially true. There's a lot of like audiophile snobs. But there's a lot of people just don't give a shit about good sound too. So I'm kind of in the middle there. I'm not a snob by any means. I like good music. But the reason this one's special, Analog Productions out of Kansas is an audiophile label, and they get master tapes and they do specific pressings. I happened to buy, they're more than normal pressings, but I bought the stereo and mono versions of 3 different Beach Boy albums around this time. And I gotta say, this is one of the most amazing oral pleasures of a recording that I own. Surfer Girl and In My Room especially. You know those songs by the Beach Boys, the choral arrangements. But the sound of this recording, of this pressing, of this mastering is absolutely stunning. I think these cost like $35 to $40, maybe even more, but they have them sales every once in a while. They go to the original Capitol swirl labels, but QRP pressings, quality record pressings, QRP, great pressing plant, which is owned by Analog Productions. What can I say? These came out in 2014, 15, I believe, this series. But gorgeous record, gorgeous. And I mean, this version, if you're a Beach Boy fan and you have a pretty good rig, invest in at least this one. Probably the mono. Stereo's great too, but probably the mono of this. Okay, one more, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Cinco, número 5. Whack-a-mole. Maybe I'll go down to the bottom here because the bottom is jazz. I picked 2 by mistake, so we're gonna have a bonus, but they're the same artist. A&M Records, Herb Alpert presents Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66. 66. Fool on the Hill. Great version. That was a hit for them. Their version of Fool on the Hill. You know, if you're going to cover a Beatles song, you might as well just shake it up, change it, and make it yours. And they certainly did with this version. Brazil 66. In fact, hold your horses. Do I have it here? Yes. Any of you jazz pop fans, a record you really need. I'm kind of getting out of the whack-a-mole thing now. This is a bonus thing because that reminded me. This record, this is Sergio Mendes, Brazil 77. 67. A&M Records, called Primal Roots. You have to get this record. There's a couple of you, I don't know if I know your tastes. I'm blanking out right now on who, but if you like jazz, but you like pop, like Brazilian music, this is an amazing record. It's more Brazilian than it is poppy, American pop. Not like, the Fool on the Hill covers and the other stuff they did, but you need this record. Yep, my original. This is the earlier A&M label, and it sounds delicious, chocolatey delicious. But it's great percussion, great vocals, great arrangements. God, I love this record. I'd forgotten about this record. As soon as we hang up here, as soon as you push the button, stop at the end of this, I'm gonna go upstairs and play this record, because I realize it's one of my favorite records, and it's probably in the easy listening pop section at your local record store. Even though it's more jazzy, and I think it's more of a serious, it's the most serious record that they did. But I want you, anybody that likes international music, jazz, pop, jazz, Latin, Brazilian, buy it. And if you don't like it, I'm going to say eat my hat. I won't eat my hat. But if you don't like it, you have no taste whatsoever. But anyway, Sergio Mendes, Primal Roots, Brazil 77. Muchas gracias con todos los personas el mira mi video y música. El Mazzy's guacamole. I was going to say guacamole, but that would be mole, chocolate sauce. And I'm really butchering the Spanish language, but I did live in the Mission District for 24 years in San Francisco, so I picked up enough of it to butcher it royally. Anyway, Mazzy loves you. See you next week.